So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
I'm trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
You like music, you like weed, well, we gonna be good friends indeed. This is not much I like more than smoking trees. They'll make you dance the do-si-do and teach you how the chiba grows. Smoke a bowl on the 420 radio show. On Lifestyle Radio.
Now, I just, you've not heard that, have you, Mary Jane?
I've heard that before, yeah.
Oh, have you?
Well,
oh, okay.
You have to sing along.
Yeah, we all sing along. You'll get it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We always sing along.
You will sing along.
Yeah, you will sing along, or I'm going to call my lawyer.
I think we might have somebody present that could help us with that.
Yes, I think so. Tonight is the start of our 10th year doing this. My butt hurts, and I need to go for a walk real bad. Tonight we have Britney and Guerra. Is that how you pronounce your last name, Britney?
Yeah, Guerra is accurate. It's actually 3 different languages. So you get like Guerra is the Spanish one and Guerra is the Italian one. I'm not sure how they say it in Portuguese, but Guerra works for me.
They're all very close, the languages, eh?
Yeah, and same spelling, same everything. And it means war across the board, which I think is interesting.
I used to work in an Italian auto parts company, and everybody that worked in the garage was all old school Italian, brought over by the boss, and they were all working with Portuguese guys, and they would talk to each other, but they could still talk behind each other's backs because it's a little different, you know.
Yeah, there's slang, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I speak Italian, and like when I go to Spain and countries like even France, because of the Canadian French background, like you get a pretty good grasp on it. Like you definitely can get your point across. There is variances, but it's pretty close. Like I have no issues when I go to Spain speaking in Italian to them, and they respond back in Spanish, and it's all good. So it's actually quite awesome how similar everything is.
You can tell the insults too. Also tonight, joining us is our buddy Jack. Jack, are you alive?
Hi there.
Jack Lloyd, the wonder boy of Canadian cannabis law these days, has taken the time out of his Friday night to come out and hang out with us, bunch of nut bars. Jack is doing a bang-up job, and I just wanted to say we're real proud of you, buddy. Just get that out of the way.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. It's my pleasure to be here.
Fucking awesome, my friend. I've known Jack for many years. He's been coming on the show since before he was even a lawyer, a little lawyer baby.
You've come a long way, baby.
Yeah, you've come a long way. I just want to, and then we've also got Mary Jane Baker, a new crew member. We're going to kind of mold her into whatever we want.
She may not like it, but we're going to do it.
Yes. So welcome, Mary Jane, and you'll get used to us very quickly. I want to take a minute and have Britney talk about why she's here and who she is and where her story started, so we can get an idea of why Jack is here. Okay.
So my name's Britney Guerra, as most of us know. I started my cannabis career 10 years ago with Cannabis Culture magazine as their advertising manager. So I did lots of cold calling all around the world for trying to get companies, like all sorts of companies. I remember we had like this Ubi, this little pipe company, all the way up to LED grow lights and, you know, some of the biggest seed companies in the world that I would have to call and convince to advertise with Cannabis Culture, which wasn't very hard because it was such a powerful online presence, you know, so many hits a month, that I was super successful in my job and I loved it every day. I obviously worked with some of the biggest people in cannabis, Mark Emery, Jody Emery, Dana Larson, And it was the best time of my life, and it turned me into who I am today. And that was kind of my step into the industry. And then around 2011, I kind of branched off and went on to the dispensary side of things and had some fun in Burnaby, and then eventually moved home to Hamilton, Ontario. And I opened Cloud9 Head Shop and Vapor Lounge, which is an awesome vapor lounge with lots of heady glass from all Canadian blowers, and then stepped into the dispensary scene. And the rest is kind of in limbo right now with that, I should say. But been in it 10 years, and I've been having the time of my life, and I can't say that I would change anything.
It's been an interesting ride, huh?
Oh, it's been incredible, I was with Cannabis Culture and was one of the CC5, unfortunately, and that's before the courts right now. Just so much different stuff going on. Hamilton has quite the little booming cannabis industry going on in the city, and there's always something going on there with whether it's counselors or injunctions or whatever. So it's been super adventurous, and every day is a new day. And, the cannabis industry is always adapting. So I don't think that it's going to end anytime soon.
Sure is.
The LCBO that they announced, that's obviously not in our best interest as people in the cannabis industry. And we're very restricted because of having previous trafficking laws.
Yeah.
But like I said, everything adapts and will adapt. And in the end, whenever the end may be, I can see there being an open market with a mixture of stores like what they have in British Columbia, as they have their liquor model. They have the BC liquor store, and then they also have public stores as well that they give licenses out to people. So that's the end goal for dispensaries and stuff in cannabis businesses as a whole in Hamilton, I would hope for.
It's I don't get that because, they've just brought alcohol and spirits into grocery stores. Are they going to allow that with cannabis as well?
And how many years has the LCBO been around, and now they're just finally allowing it into liquor stores? Are we expected to sit and wait around for 30 years until they loosen up on, their dispensary laws and stuff? I don't think so. So it'll be really interesting to see what dispensary owners in the province do and how they decide to kick back from this kind of, injustice of everybody that created the industry is being forced out of it.
Well, not everybody. I mean, there are a lot of people. I mean, how long have you been in the community now, Jack? I mean, I've known you about 8 years. So.
Yeah, I think I started editing books at the end of 2009, I think.
Yeah, and so you've been sitting there like myself and like Britney and Marcel and Ross and just watching what's been going on all these years. And I mean, 5 years ago even, we were talking a whole different animal, and now we're almost there. And
no, we're not.
No,
that's what they say. Come on, no, play along.
All we're almost there to is another form of prohibition.
See, and here's the way that I look at it. Sorry to interrupt, guys.
That's okay.
But,
no, go ahead.
Federally, we've won. Okay, Cannabis Culture has been lobbying for 22 years to try and get marijuana legalized in this country. And federally, that mission is accomplished. Our next step is provincial law. And after that, it's going to be municipal law. We've only won one of three beasts, right? You have to go all the way down to a municipal level in order to get what you want. So,
of course, yes.
Isn't this a partial victory, though?
It is a partial victory. The fact that, minors aren't going to get charged for marijuana possession and they'll get a smoking in public ticket.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic. The fact that tourism, people from all over the world are going to want to come to Canada and be able to buy marijuana from our stores. And it's going to be an amazing, booming industry. And I'm so happy that we're even a part of this history in the making.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the kind of the person that I see the victory in things, but I also see the challenges in things. So I'm really looking forward to, the future and people challenging provincial law and seeing how it goes. And eventually I feel like we'll be on a side to a public/private market where everybody's kind of happy and it works out.
Well, let's
the only problem is, though, we're only fighting provincially for access because they're going to have the distribution model. The problem we have is federally, all production is still controlled by the federal government, which means that there is no craft cannabis. It's only licensed LPs for the legalized market.
You know, I've been doing a fair amount of research, and like Kirk tweeted a really good one today where Colorado has 40% of the population of Ontario, and they have 700 storefronts selling cannabis currently at a recreational level.
Yeah.
And,
right.
All of these stores are proliferating and being super successful and have lineups around the blocks. And I think that, you know, the government doesn't really understand the monster that they're getting into by legalizing cannabis, because their stores are going to be sold out within the first 5 hours. You know, trust me, I know, I've seen it. So I think
we watched it happen in Las Vegas.
Right.
Yes.
And I think that they're going to start accepting as many LPs as they can through the system. Like, you know, the last 2 years has been very difficult to become an LP, but once they realize how much of a shortage they're going to have, because they already can't supply medical patients at this point in time. So once they understand and fully grasp the machine that is recreational cannabis, they're just going to start pushing all of these applications through, and there will be craft growers. It's just a grueling process that people have to go through right now.
Yeah.
And maybe that might change once LPs are coming through at a recreational level. Like, I know that there will still be pesticide testings and this and that and the other thing, but I believe, like, very strongly that they're going to have to loosen up and let more people through, because they're not going to be able to handle it.
Oh, I think they're already doing that to some degree. I think that, you know, your craft growers of the future are just going to be small LPs.
Right.
You know, and that's
eventually.
Pretty much,
but
yeah.
they've definitely got to change some of their criteria.
They do, but they have streamlined the system. They've made it so that you don't have to go through the ladder step process of getting approval. You know, you get your one permit and you go for the whole ball of wax, right? So that helps to streamline things a bit. And I did notice that they said that they would be approving, you know, both large and small growers. It's still going to be money, though. It's still about money. You know, like so if you're talking about a craft grower getting licensed under the Cannabis Act or under the current system, you're still talking about, you know, in the millions of dollars.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, there's no craft grower
not
that's
going to license
$150,000 and get a permit to grow. That, you know, that kind of stuff isn't going to happen.
No, this is why we'll have a continued black market.
Right, and if I can just comment about some of the feedback that I'm getting as, you know, a hydroponic store owner who's been in the business for 15 years, obviously I've got a large clientele of that persuasion, and they are just so happy with the program that Kathleen Wynne has announced.
Oh, because
they just couldn't be happier.
It guaranteed them business.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was pretty happy
about
with it. Yeah, and see, that's what bothers me is we're going to end up seeing some prices go back up at the street level.
Yeah.
Because of this, especially when the LPs run out.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like, whatever you do, don't throw away, you know, your buddy's phone number, because you're going to need it.
No, I don't need anybody's phone number. I'm cool.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the public.
Okay.
The public at large.
I will say what's really interesting about statements that there's going to be no room for craft growers and small scale producers won't have space. Kirk Tusaw just has a case. It's an intervention. So that means that you're making an application to add your voice to the case, although you're not a moving party to the case, on this case called Como. And essentially it's a really interesting case. So it's a guy that's in New Brunswick. He's retired, and he drives over the border into Quebec, and he goes to the SAQ and he buys 2 cases of beer and a bottle of vodka or something, and then drives back over the border into New Brunswick because it's cheaper to buy the booze in Quebec. And now the RCMP are tailing him because they've got like a project ongoing about, you know, about people buying cheap booze in Quebec and then driving into New Brunswick. They notify the New Brunswick RCMP or whoever, who then stop him and they charge him with a contravention of the Liquor Control Act of New Brunswick. And then the consequence of a charge under that act is a fine of, I think it was $268. So this retired guy gets a ticket essentially for $268, which most people would just pay and say, okay, I guess I learned my lesson. He challenged the constitutionality of the ticket itself, and he said that essentially prohibiting him from purchasing alcohol in Quebec and bringing it back to New Brunswick, whatever law prohibited him from doing that, which was the liquor law in New Brunswick, essentially was unconstitutional because it breached Section 121 of the Constitution Act of 1867. So this is a law that like nobody's questioned since like 1921 or something. So really interesting case. So it sounds kind of outlandish, but what does he do? But he wins in the provincial court. The judge goes, he strikes down, Justice LeBlanc, he strikes down their provincial liquor law insofar as it prohibits purchasing alcohol in another province and bringing it back to New Brunswick. So the province appeals it, takes it to the Court of Appeal in New Brunswick, and they lose again. So now they've appealed to the Supreme Court of Canada, and it's this really big question about what free trade between provinces means. And it's become really important for our community because the way that cannabis is being legalized in Canada, it's happening through something that, like lawyers would call it, cooperative federalism. So it's a federal piece of law that legalizes this activity, but it directs provincial pieces of law to set the rules for it. What's happened in Ontario is they've said, well, our Liquor Control Board of Ontario is going to set all the rules for how we deal with the legal cannabis or recreational cannabis. And so Kirk and myself as well, as his working with him, we've essentially applied to be interveners on behalf of cannabis culture, essentially challenging that we're an affected party if they make a determination about what the scope and interpretation of Section 121 of the Constitution Act is. So it's really pretty exciting because even while all of these provincial governments are saying, here's how it's going to be and nobody can question us, it's just going to be X, Y, Z, there's this unique opportunity to have our voices heard and to have the Supreme Court, even if the Supreme Court writes one paragraph about our situation, we can use that. That becomes a really persuasive and binding, legal document to challenge this Kathleen Wynne monopoly in Ontario and this sort of bizarre supplier side monopoly that's emerging in New Brunswick, and certainly would send a powerful message to other provinces as they consider what they're going to do with cannabis legalization. And the reason that I brought this up is that we're talking about craft cannabis producers, and part of what, when we drafted this pleading that we sent to the Supreme Court of Canada, we said, like, what happens to a craft cannabis producer in British Columbia? In British Columbia, most likely they're going to license all of the privately owned shops that exist throughout British Columbia, and they're going to say that's where you can access your cannabis, and licensed producers will then sell cannabis to them, and you can buy it from them there. And so a small craft producer in BC who supplies shops in BC would really struggle to meet the internal regulations that the LCBO has. Like the LCBO, when it purchases liquor, they go, well, the liquor bottle needs to be 13.2 centimeters high, and if it's 13.3 centimeters high, we're not taking anything. And you need to supply us with 4,000 liters of alcohol on April 3rd, and if it arrives on April 4th, we're not accepting it, because they've got a monopoly. They can be, quite tyrannical with it. And so part of the argument is that this strict regulation is a serious infringement of free trade between provinces. And you know what? Other provinces are affected as well. Like you look at the Northwest Territories, Yukon, even all throughout the Maritimes, there are many, many provinces and territories that do not have a single licensed producer. Not everyone's like Ontario has like 31, BC has 14, but lots of more remote areas don't have a single licensed producer. Right. And so one of the consequences could be is that they open up shops and somebody in the Yukon doesn't have access to quality cannabis flowers or strains or quality cannabis derivative products as a result of these interprovincial barriers. So it's a really important case, and it's a really exciting thing. So hopefully we are granted intervenor status and we can make our case for the emerging legal cannabis industry. So it's pretty exciting.
Hey,
sorry,
Jack,
I didn't mean to ramble. I know
okay.
that I wanted to get that out there before I got distracted.
Everybody,
lawyer, that was the Reader's Digest version, right?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's just kind of like, oh, listen to Jack. Shh.
That's awesome. I think it's great. I hope you are very successple in that case and get that intervenor status, because you're right, it would be precedent setting, wouldn't it?
Well, I love the idea of disrupting all of these corrupt plans to monopolize all of these grassroots communities, and they're coming in with all of these, fancy corporate shenanigans. I love the idea that the Supreme Court might sort of throw us a bone, and we could really stick it to them. I like that idea, certainly.
Well,
so
can I ask you something? Can I ask you about the Village dispensary and of course
I was just going to ask
what
about
happened
that.
there? I know you can't talk a lot about details about what's going on, but there is an article that I'm reading right now that's talking about how they shut down the vapor lounge, I guess, upstairs, but the judge ruled that the dispensary downstairs could stay open.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Britney's right here, and it used to be her shop, so let's let her tell the story, and then Jack, you can intercede when you feel necessary. How's that?
Sounds good.
There you go.
Which will be every 5 seconds.
Well, there you go. But that's why he's here.
Okay, so I'm just going to get into a little bit of a history of the store. So Hamilton Village Dispensary was previously Cannabis Culture Hamilton, which we know was Cannabis Cultures were an amazing chain of dispensaries across Canada. And unfortunately, after March 8th, Project Gator raids, Cannabis Culture was forced out of Hamilton, and I was forced out of the dispensary industry. So I kind of just left it to the staff, and whatever they did, and they turned it into this amazing place that, it rose out of the ashes, because everybody thought that the day of the Project Gator raids, that was D-Day. There was no more. There were no more Hamilton villages, or no more Cannabis Cultures, sorry. And I'm not going to lie, I was in that cell with the CC5 thinking the exact same thing. It's over. That was fun. What a ride it was. But the village, they created their own brand. They did amazing things for Hamilton after I left. And while Cloud9 was upstairs, I'm unable to attend the building due to my bail conditions, it being above a dispensary with no separate entrance. So I had been working from home a lot, doing all the inventory ordering and stuff for the Vapor Lounge, stuff that I'm still capable of doing without going there. And I guess it was in July, the city of Hamilton applied for an injunction to shut down both businesses, citing that we were a danger to the neighborhood. So unfortunately, Cloud9 lost the part of the injunction only due to zoning, because the second floor is zoned residential, which I would love to argue about because there's only there's no kitchen in there. It's 2 washrooms, 1 big single room. So there's definitely nobody living up there. But I'm applying for zoning variances right now just to be able to get it back open, and we'll see how that goes. But I'll let Jack take over the rest for the village, because I don't I can't speak on dispensary matters really at all. So he can tell you what he can tell you and take it from there.
Well, I think that it's really upsetting that they shut down the Vapor Lounge, because it was essentially a really safe space for patients to use their medicine within a space where other interested parties could use their medicine as well. And so there's always this crummy shutdown of safe spaces for our community that happens when these injunctions occur. But ultimately the real victory was we got a superior court judge to say, I'm not granting you an injunction until you prove that the access to cannabis for medical purposes regulations are constitutional, insofar as they failed to issue rules and regulations for medical cannabis dispensaries. Because in the Allard case, essentially Justice Phelan said, these dispensaries are the heart of access. So everyone expected them to get licensed, and they didn't. So we're ready to fight this case. Essentially, we're organizing right now to have, I've got the patients organized and the factum and the constitutional challenge drafted. It just needs to be filed. So we're working on it, and it's going to be heard in December. So probably, I can't get into the litigation details, but so it's exciting. We're hopeful that if we get a good ruling in December, it could really result in Hamilton City Council essentially saying, okay, well, medical cannabis dispensaries are here to stay in Hamilton. We don't care what the LCBO can. The LCBO can license a million shops, whatever, but medical cannabis dispensaries operate under federal jurisdiction, and the municipality might issue rules for how they can exist, similar to how it's happened in Vancouver. So I'm hopeful that we can do a good job and see if that's one of the results.
You know, I gotta say that, I mean, I frequented the cannabis culture when it was that, and I frequent now Hamilton dispensary, the Village dispensary. Probably once or twice a month I'm in there. And the people in there, I have not been in there since they changed over, but the guys in there and the people behind the, what do you call them? Tables. My brain is gone. They're always, you know, they're informative. You ask them a question. It brings me back when I go in there to when I first started going into places like Calm back, 5-6 years ago, where there was a lot of attention to knowledge about strains and things like that. I have to be honest, I like the idea of being able to walk into a store and walk out, minding my own business, get what I want, go home, just like a beer or a bottle of booze, whatever, or a pack of cigarettes. Medical or not, that convenience is great. I don't really like having to go through a double door, have my eyes checked, and questioned before I go into a dispensary.
And the anal probe. Don't forget the anal probe.
That's right. but my point is, it started when dispensaries started coming out in Toronto out of the woodwork, so to speak, before Gator was around and all that. It was bubbly, and you go in and you had a community there and you had a chat. It slowly started getting to come in, get what you want, get the fuck out. Unfortunately, I think these new stores are going to start that again, that atmosphere again.
Well, I think that one of the real concerns is that there's this institutional knowledge and this existing culture, which every aspect of the provincial plan is essentially deracinating. It's all, there's no space for people to get together and watch a comedy show and use cannabis together. There's no space for people to congregate and talk about cannabis together. All it is it's so palpably capitalistic that something needs to happen. So I'm hopeful that we can create our own secret house against this nasty monopoly that
Yeah.
the Wynne government is trying to introduce. So whether that's through a big court win or what, I think we need to kind of say to them, hey, like we've existed for a long time, and an LCBO shop isn't going to cut it.
We haven't done so bad policing ourselves. Some people would say differently, but the community itself, patients helping patients. I mean, most of the patients that I know that help patients are pretty out there and visible and not really hiding, No,
we don't hide at all.
You see what I mean?
Because we're helping patients.
That's right. But if the community was like that all around, I think it'd be a little bit better.
But see, with a lot of us that are patients that are doing this, it's because we realized when we were really sick that healthy people don't help us. We have to help ourselves.
Yeah.
And as long as we never forget that, then we'll always keep helping.
That's right. And on that note, I want to take a quick break, and then Mary Jane just said something, and I want her to say what it is when we come back. I'm going to make her speak now. Throw her into the wolves. We'll be right back. This is the 420 Radio Show. If I haven't said that yet, sorry. You can listen at lifestyleradio.net, 420radio.ca. We'll be right back with Britney and Jack and Marcel and Bob and Joe and Carrie and whoever else.
Mary Jane.
And Gilligan, the professor, and Ginger.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
And Mary Ann.
Man, have you been to Canada's yet? Canada's, Campbellford's premier cannabis culture shop at 19 Bridge Street West. They've got bongs, oil rigs, grinders, and papers. Everything you need for consumption. They've got seeds, soil, nutrients, and dome trays too. Everything you need for cultivation. Get top quality seeds from top suppliers like Canuck, Crop King, and wholesaler Nexus. Canada's. They've got all kinds of awesome cannabis novelties, clothing, and apparel. I know, right? It's a lot more than just a bong shop. Interested in gaining legal access? Canada's can help. They're a PACE information center. People advocating cannabis education? Come by the shop and check it out. 19 Bridge Street West, Campbellford. Canada's. Have your say without saying a word. Canada's.ca.
So what are you doing? Nothing. Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
I've got so many watches, timers on ovens, set just to get me to you. Wore out an 8-track of Elvis, shaking my pelvis. We were knocking them blue suede boots. When I opened up the wine, I forgot where the time went, and I drank till nothing was left. And now it's 4:22. I fucking missed it again. Don't get paid till tomorrow. I'm too proud to borrow. Tonight's a bust for me. Dispensaries all over this country, but I can't get no THC. Well, no package in the mail. This isn't going well. I'll get by with a little help from my friends. But now it's 4:22. I fucking missed it again. guess you can kiss it. Well, make no mistake that I'm gonna get half baked when I hit it. And now it's 4:22, and this time I'm twisted. And now it's 4:22. I didn't fucking miss it. It's 4:22, and my man, you just missed it.
All right, we
had
are
a
back.
conversation last night about whether you can get charged if you break your foot, your like your right foot, whether you can be charged with a Highway Traffic Act offense because of your and so it's actually true. You can't. Anyway, long story short, your doctor technically takes your license away if you break your right foot or you fracture it where they have to put the big thing on it.
Really?
They essentially take away your insurance. You can't be insured anymore. So if you drive, you can get a really nasty Highway Traffic Act ticket.
Wow.
And the only way to reverse it is you have to get a note from your doctor that essentially says their foot is good enough to step on the brakes if he needs to stop his car. So if you're going to break a foot, break your left foot. Okay.
There you go. You heard it here. That's a free legal tip by Jack Lloyd.
See,
Dude, yeah,
you don't
the
get
advice
much.
says don't break your foot.
All right. So, you made a pertinent point, Mary Jane, before in the window here, because I asked her. This is her first show, and I don't want her to be nervous. I want you to read what you said and tell people what you're thinking, because it's very pertinent as to the conversation we're having.
Okay. As the government stated in their legislation that they brought out this week, they said that the government would be the only ones responsible for production and sale of cannabis for recreational purposes. Now, in Ontario, I'm covered under the MMPR, so I have to go to a licensed producer in order to get my medicine. Now, these are supposed to be the same type government-controlled places, yet I've had to endure cannabis medicine that has been tainted with chemicals. I've had adverse side effects. And, this is a concern for me because we're putting all of our population at risk. So I really think there should be room for the craft market, because I think nobody knows the plant better than the people that love the plant and will treat it with the respect that it needs. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
It's a good point. And I think the other thing to note is that the craft growers actually use the cannabis they grow. So they're not poisoning themselves. It's not a corporation that's tracking every single gram that has being run by people that have never smoked a joint. But I would like to say congratulations to Organigram on being able to secure $5 million for the recreational market, since nobody will buy it as medicine.
Well, it's not medicine, Marcel.
Well, but that's what it's supposed to be, and
yeah, tell that to the bottle in the ceiling.
Yeah.
So I got a question about going back to the village dispensary, the ruling that the judge made, and again, just in broad terms, the ruling he made about allowing the dispensary to stay open as long as they're doing medical to medical, and what you said about it possibly setting a precedent where Hamilton can then zone and let medical to medical dispensaries operate. Jack, my question to you is would it just be Hamilton, or could that take on a broader scope and affect regulations across the country? Because it's a federal ruling, is it not?
No.
No? Okay.
It's a Superior Court ruling on two very specific zoning and licensing bylaws in Hamilton. So it's very persuasive to other judges that are dealing with similar bylaw issues in other municipalities, but they're different like the City of Hamilton Act is very different than the City of Toronto Act. It's very different than the City of Oshawa Act. It's very different than the City of Ottawa Act. They have lots and lots of similarities, but it's not necessarily of precedential value, because someone could just argue, well, that was in Hamilton because their bylaw is completely different. So it's very persuasive, because essentially what it's saying is brass tacks, Superior Court judge has said that they're very uncomfortable shutting down an access point for medical cannabis out of the blue if sick people are accessing medicine there and they need to access it. And so now they're seeking a permanent injunction. That's going to happen in December, and that's when we have the big fight. So we're going to fight to say, so when we have that fight, if we win, then they can never shut them down.
Okay, so what we have right now, is it a provincial court ruling? Is that or federal court?
The Superior Court.
Superior. Which is it? When you say superior, though, is that provincial or federal?
So part of the confusion comes from how the Constitution Act names courts in various jurisdictions in Canada, so that we have a federal court system that deals with a variety of interpretations of statutes that are issued by the federal government. Okay. And then we have the Ontario Court of Justice, which is a provincial court. And the Ontario Court of Justice deals with a variety of issues, generally criminal law issues that are of a less serious nature. And then we have the Superior Court, which lawyers might call a court of inherent jurisdiction. So the Superior Court that's, for all intents and purposes, that's the most important court in a province. So the Superior Court of Hamilton has said that you can't shut a dispensary down until you prove that the ACMPR is constitutional, insofar as it failed to license and regulate dispensaries after Justice Phelan said they were supposed to.
Right. And so when you go back, and it's in December, you go back, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you going to be arguing before the same Superior Court, or?
Yeah, it's going to be at the same Superior Court, and we'll have basically the same fight, but even bigger.
Okay. Do you think that there's any possibility it could go to the next level and be brought to the federal courts?
So if we win, then there's a chance that the City of Hamilton will appeal it to the Court of Appeal, the Ontario Court of Appeal. Oh. So if they did that, then essentially nothing would change for 18 months or however long it took to get heard. And then we would go up there, and they would have to appeal it on the basis that an error in law was made. So it's really hard to appeal a decision especially of a Superior Court judge. I thought that they might appeal. It happened when I initially stopped the injunction from going through, but they didn't appeal it. So, so here we are. But if we lose, we would have grounds to appeal, and we could bring the fight to the Court of Appeal. But ultimately, between now and December, we've got an unbelievably good ruling for dispensaries. Essentially, this ruling could really encourage municipal and provincial governments to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm. I guess I'm just really hoping that somehow, some way, they're going to make an exception for medical dispensaries, and allow them, to be federally regulated, so that the provinces can't say no. That maybe I'm just dreaming. Maybe I'm just hoping for too much.
That's exactly the goal. And if we do a good job at persuading the Supreme Court of Canada that the cannabis industry is adversely affected by interprovincial trade barriers, we may very well shake up the LCBO monopoly as well. So we're fighting hard to prevent essentially the big corporate guys from locking out. Like, ultimately, the goal is for everyone to be licensed and regulated under a comprehensive and inclusive legal regime. That's what legalization looks like to me.
That's what it should.
Everybody has the opportunity to comply with the law. The legalization that we're faced with is only a select group of people have the opportunity to comply with the law. Everyone else can either break the law and face serious criminal sanctions, or they can lose the culture that they've been a part of for decades.
That we built from the ground up.
That we built as well. Yeah.
One of the things that I find really, really interesting about this whole Hamilton thing is you could consider this as a test study, as a trial, okay? Because they're watching what happens and where it goes from here. The dispensary community in Toronto, specifically, because that's what I know, they've done a pretty good job at regulating themselves.
Well, this injunction fight is happening in Toronto as well. That's important to know, is that there's a hearing September 25 and 26. Paul Lewin and Kirk Tusar counsel on it, along with John Conroy and
what a team! Holy shit.
Bringing in the big guns.
So, and they're going to have it's the same fight that we had in Hamilton. We just we won ours earlier. So
I did not know that, and that's awesome to know.
So randomly, I was there as agent for Kirk Tusar, but randomly Tusar Law Corporation wins this injunction in Hamilton, kind of unexpectedly, before anyone else gets a ruling, and so it's had this wave effect on the hearings in Toronto, because I was in court all day in Toronto dealing with depositions, and it was palpable in the air that they're saying, well, we thought it was so certain that we would be able to shut down these dispensaries in Toronto because, clearly they're contravening the bylaw. And then suddenly Tusar Law Corporation gets this insane victory in Hamilton, where a Superior Court judge says, no, you're disrespecting Justice Phelan's order, and you can't shut down a medical cannabis dispensary using the bylaws. So it's huge. So it's exciting times.
You went in as this is a medical establishment. Is that what you did? Because
well, I can't talk. I'm gonna.
No, I don't.
Down right there.
No, that's not where I was going. I wasn't asking you a direct question. What I was getting at is, I always understood as the Hamilton dispensary and cannabis culture as a recreational dispensary, not a medical dispensary.
Well, I can't fight against an injunction for recreational users because there's no charter mandated right to access that exists for recreational. That's a fight you would have if you wanted to argue Malmo Levine, but I can't stop an injunction with Malmo Levine. What I do know is that regardless of whether it's medical or recreational, sick people access their medicine through this storefront, and that was the only possible way that I could keep it open.
And that's what I was wondering. I was wondering how you framed that, because you've basically, what has happened through all of this is you've taken a recreational establishment and turned it into a medical establishment. That is now.
I turned it into the only.
Yeah, that's.
For lack of a better word, I turned it into the only licensed compassion club in Ontario.
Bingo.
Yeah. Brilliant.
But that's the problem, is that the way that the government has done this is they're saying recreational cannabis is going to be sold through the LCBO's mail order and storefront system. So there's no, I don't know how to fight against that, but I do know that the LCBO is not selling medical cannabis, and they haven't made a ruling on whether medical cannabis dispensaries can continue existing. So if we fight hard and we do a good job of this, maybe we can set up our own world, our own system for medically qualified people, and then let them have recreational.
I'm glad that you said it that way, Jack, because there since last week. When was it? Last week, 2 weeks ago now, when the announcement came out. Everybody's talking about these announcements, but what I'm not seeing is anybody saying, hold on a minute, this is all recreational people. Our medical program is already in effect, at least for the next 5 years, they're saying. But we're talking now about recreational, right? And people aren't realizing they're getting you get patients that are getting pissed off about what's going to happen recreationally, yet they can grow 49 plants in their basement.
Yeah.
It's like people are trying to get pissed off for a reason, but there's not really,
My reason for being pissed off is because I can already foresee the shortages that are going to happen to the medical side.
Yes, that's a valid reason. Of course it is.
Yes,
right. That's my major beef right now, is because, and I don't blame them, but everybody and their dog knows that they're going to be able to command a higher price on the recreational market than they can get off of a medical market.
Yeah, but are they going to have special prices for medical? Probably not, huh?
No, they wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
some might, but I think I like Jack's idea. Let medical be on their own. Well, but the way I look at it is, we're already licensed producers because we are licensed to grow by the federal government.
Yeah, but think about this scenario, Marcel. You walk into a liquor store, you put your 26er on the counter, and you say, "Well, this is for medicinal use."
They used to.
Yeah.
They used to.
Are they going to give you a discount?
Well, you don't get a discount, but in Nova Scotia, I can get grain alcohol through a prescription from my doctor.
Yes, we buy it by the case. Yes, I realize that. But I'm just talking about, philosophically, is a CCBO going to look at a person who identifies themselves as a patient and say, okay, you get a discount on your cannabis, or you get your cannabis tax-free, or you get, I don't see that scenario. So there's an argument right there.
I could see the tax-free part happening because they can do it now with status natives who can get tax-free.
Yes, and there's a whole bunch of stuff happening in that area too that is...
Well, but this is a cash grab, and they want as much money as they can get.
Yes.
So
and that's where the patients get steamrollered.
That's right. That's why I take offense to all of this crap.
Yes, and I think it's just I really feel like we're the forgotten ones, the patients. Yeah, sure, we got the ACMPR. Okay, they're taking 6 months to process applications. Hey, no problem there. But I just feel like we're like the neglected ones. They hired something like 63 hires to help process licensed producer applications, and of course, after much complaining from many patients, they finally hired 23 people to process personal production permits. So, we're already being overshadowed by the efforts put forth to approve licensed producers. And I think that this push for the recreational approval of licensed producers is actually hurting the patients who want to go through with personal production, and they're having to put so many resources into the preparing for recreational that we're having to wait some people 8 months to get their application.
I waited 22 weeks. I waited
6 months for me.
22 weeks.
Yeah. Like, how acceptable is that? How acceptable is it for me when I call up?
I have to put my renew in next month, or I expire in January.
Right. And that's where I was going next. Like, okay, I got my permit on August 30th. That was when my certificate was dated, August 30th, after they announced the program. So my renewal has already come up. I put it in 3 months early, and I had to fight and claw and scream to get my renewal back before my current certificate expired. And every single time I talked to them about it, I'd say, what do I do if I have a gap between when my old one expires and my new one gets here? And they say, and I've got it recorded over and over with multiple individuals. They say to you, well, if there's a gap, you have to destroy all your plants and pull them all up, and you have to destroy all of your storage. So I even said to them, like, you do realize what you're asking me to do, right? What you're asking me to do is a violation of my Section 7 charter rights, which is why you are there today, because you violated them before, and now you're asking me to choose between my health and my security again. And I've got you on, I've recorded it. So how can they do that? Jack, maybe you can shed a little bit of light on how they can blatantly violate your Section 7 charter rights. And
well, they haven't violated it until you're charged criminally for either production or possession. But you've got a charter mandated right to reasonable access, which is being seriously infringed by the fact that they don't have the resources to keep issuing these licenses. So actually we cross-examined Eric Costin today for 2 hours, and this issue came up. And from the sounds of things, Health Canada is working on hiring more people, but they're not there yet. And from the sounds of things, Kirk says that this is a really serious problem. So you guys aren't alone with these delay issues. So litigation is forthcoming. I had a client who his registration certificate didn't come in time, so he phoned the police. He asked me, and I said, as an officer of the court, I would advise you to phone the police and advise them that you've got unlawful cannabis plants in your living room. The police come, they say, we'll give you a week, hopefully it comes. They come back a week later. The LP says, well, we lost, I don't know what they had done, but the paperwork was not forthcoming. So the police take the plants away, and my poor client loses everything. So it's awful. And this is someone that's actively working really hard to be in compliance with the regulations.
Right.
So someone doesn't deserve to face a serious threat of a criminal charge simply by trying to exist in a government program. So I think that there's a good chance that if they don't start fixing the way the licenses are issued, rather their registration certificates are issued, then you're right. There's going to be a
lot of lawsuits coming up.
There's going to be a lot of lawsuits and a lot of people existing that can't take advantage of this government program.
Unfortunately, there's going to be
very unfair.
There's going to be a lot of dead people as well. Unfortunately, that's going to come along as well. There's people that aren't going to.
I've had that too. Running the nonprofit that we run, and we get a lot of. I've put it out there for testimonials. I've had people come to me, like at least one anyway, who said that their application's been in for 5 months now. They've been diagnosed with a terminal illness, and they're afraid they're going to die before they get their certificate back.
Yep.
How compelling would that be in a court of law, Jack?
As a lawyer, I would say I'd like to do an affidavit with them for a constitutional challenge. So
and do it now before it's too late.
Yeah.
Well, part of the problem is that it's so awful to force someone to choose between their liberty and their health and medical autonomy. That's not fair.
No, it's not, and it's
we need to ask more of our government. So
if you
contact information, I'd like to hear from them.
Yes, and Jack, you could maybe mention to Kirk, and I actually sent him an email. I do have probably 20 or so testimonials, recorded and written, that are available. If they're of any assistance whatsoever, they're available.
These are people that are struggling to access using the ACMPR?
Absolutely. These are conversations that were held with the people at the ACMPR, all the way up from the frontline phone answer, the phone people, right through to supervisors and even beyond.
Okay, I'd like to hear from
telling you to destroy your cannabis and choose between your health and your security.
Wow.
Well, I'd like to hear more.
Sounds like you guys need to talk off air.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I did send an email to Kirk. Maybe if next time you're talking to him, you can just mention it to him.
Tell him you're going to take care of this.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Well, no. I mean, I just think that it's something that needs to be dealt with. It's serious, okay? It's not, and it's not being talked about. You don't hear about this in the media, you know? You hear about somebody who lost their cat and the fire department had to come get it out of the tree, right? But you don't hear about how, you know, people are waiting to get approved by Health Canada for medical cannabis and they're going to die before they get that approval. You know, that doesn't make the news. So it's got to make the courts, in my opinion. We've got to push the issue, you know, through the legal avenues, and that's the only way that we're going to make it right, because it's just not right now.
Well, like I said, that's something like, sounds like you guys need to have a chat, and Jack has some listening to do.
Well,
more listening to do. Listen, guys, I want to take another break, and I want to come back, and I want to give Brittany a chance to talk about the future. And maybe we can talk with Jack about the future as well, and where they think we're going to end up, and all that kind of stuff. What do you think?
Sounds
We're all
good.
Going to hell.
Yep.
Yeah, we're all going to hell.
And us.
Yeah, but at least we have a great lawyer.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
The following is a public service announcement from the Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society. The Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society is a non-profit organization dedicated to ensuring improved access to therapeutic cannabis and cannabis byproducts in Canada. With a federal government that has committed to legalizing cannabis, we feel it is our duty to ensure that the medicinal use of cannabis doesn't get lost in the process, and that there are clear distinctions made between the medicinal and recreational use of cannabis. It is our mission to ensure that government regulation doesn't get in the way of a sick, disabled, or terminally ill person's right to use or produce this amazing natural health product. If you would like to get involved, you can contact us on the internet. www.canadiantherapeuticCannabisPartners.com, on Facebook, CTCP Society, or search Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Warning. The Surgeon General warns. Cigarette smoking is dangerous. Dangerous. Hazard to your health. Does that mean anything to you? Them legalize marijuana. Right here in Jamaica, yeah. Them say it cure glaucoma, yeah. I'm an the bush doctor, yeah. So there'll be no more smoking and feeling tense. When I see them come, I don't have to jump. Legalize marijuana. Down here in Jamaica, yeah. Only cure for asthma, yeah. I'm an active minister, yeah. So there'll be no more police brutality, no more disrespect for humanity. Legalize marijuana, yeah. Down here in Jamaica, yeah. Can build up a failing economy, yeah. Eliminate the slavish mentality. So there'll be no more illegal humiliation, and no more police intervention. Legalize marijuana.
love that song. I remember as a teenager going and seeing Peter Tosh every summer at the Forum at Ontario Place. And he would come out on his unicycle with a spliff in his mouth that must have been a foot long. Yeah. He was an amazing performer. So this is the 420 Radio Show. We've been sitting here chatting the last hour with Britney, Guerra, and Jack Lloyd. Somebody had a brain fart there for a minute. And we're talking about Britney's case and, in the past and what's happened with the cannabis culture stuff and now what's going on with the Hamilton Village Dispensary, which I love going down there. They're always nice people down there. And I want to kind of shift now, if you guys don't mind, to the future, because Britney's got a new endeavor that she wanted to come and talk about as well. So why don't I let you do that, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so after the Project Gator raids, I was pushed away from Cloud9 as well as the dispensary industry. Like I said, Cloud9 I was kind of working on from afar, doing computer stuff and inventory and whatever. But I was sad because like Cloud9's my heart no matter what. That's my brand that I built myself. It's, like Jack said, it's a social environment for people. Some people in which aren't very social people and don't normally get out of the house come there and make friends to the point that they're there almost every day. And just what it does for people. It's such a beautiful place. And, I was sent a picture of it after they shut it down, and it just absolutely broke my heart because there's so many people that are just at loss because of it. I look at the Instagram and every single comment is, I can't wait for you guys to come back. I need you guys to come back. I miss you there so much. Like, it's like people's second home. It's like a little clubhouse. We had comedy night every Wednesday. It was sold out every single Wednesday. There was not a seat left in the house. People would have to call like 2 days before for reservations just to get in on this comedy show. And sitting at home doing inventory to me is not working. I'm a very social person. I love talking to people. I love being around people. I love telling my story and preaching about cannabis legalization in the proper way. And so I'd always had this idea for a cannabis-inspired jewelry line. And one of my best friends, Miss Karina Gonzalez, is a fashion designer, and that's like her industry. She knows how to do spec sheets, she knows design, she knows measurements, she knows everything. So I approached her with the idea of Canna Gems, in which I would design, with her, we would design pot leaf necklaces and cannabis body chains and earrings and all different beautiful line of our own stuff. So once I was pulled away from the businesses, I just missed that neighborhood so much. Like, when you spend every day somewhere, it's your home. Like Denninger's across the street. I knew all the girls by first name basis. So I started scouting out stores in the neighborhood. And fortunately, for me, unfortunately for the BIA lady who doesn't like me, we found a location like 6 doors down from the original King Street building called Canna Gems. I decided, my husband came up with the amazing idea to incorporate pendants as well, because pendants are really the gems of the cannabis industry. Women wear them, men wear them. Everybody loves pendies. They're universal in every way. And it's a super affordable way for people to afford their favorite glass blower, because these glass blowers are actually pretty expensive to get functional pieces. So to be able to buy a little trinket that you can wear around your neck at an affordable price, and that's your favorite glass blower, is a great thing. So Canna Gems was born on, I believe it was August 15th. We launched our flagship store, and it's absolutely stunning inside. We have, I love antiques. Most of my businesses have been based around them. So it's gorgeous inside. We have walls of pendants, and our own jewelry line's taking a little bit longer because you have to put everything through production. So right now we only have our one trademark Flower of Life pendant necklace available, with many more coming, though. They should be coming down the pipe before Christmas, so I'm really looking forward to that.
I've gone by, actually. I went by the day before you guys were opening.
Really,
I
eh? Yeah, it's a beautiful store. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so proud of what it is.
I've peeked in the window. Let's put it that way. Yeah. But
It's a different take on the cannabis industry. Nobody has, come out with a strictly pendant / jewelry store before.
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, it's my first business that is completely on the legal side. There's no bylaw infractions or criminal infractions or anything. We have a business license. We did everything we needed to do with the city. And it's like my little cushion, like I can go in there and not have to look over my shoulders and wonder who's watching or why. It's actually a really cool feeling to have a place like that is for sure a safe space for me.
I hope it works.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. And, like we said, we're fighting the injunction for Cloud9 and trying to get the zoning changed and everything. And one day I would love to be able to walk into that building proudly again and go upstairs and get it all started again, because it was an unfortunate loss in the whole situation, because it's not me. I'm okay. Like, I have CanaGems. I have tons of friends and family around me that love me and support me, that I can talk to every day. It's the customers that went there that I feel the worst for. The people that I know, most of the time are at home behind their phones or on their computers, like socializing that way. And we gave them a space where they could just be themselves, whether, it was a person who loved anime or a person who loves video games or somebody who's out every day playing basketball and sports and whatever. It just gave a common ground to all people. Like, you would be friends with people who you would never expect to be friends with. Like, I've made friends with so many people just from that place. So I'm really looking forward. And like, people I would have never walked up to and been like, you know what, we're going to be friends today because I'm going to like you.
Yeah. You meet a lot of different people in a store, and it's a constant conversation, sometimes the same conversation over and over again. But if you're a sociable person, then that just becomes your day to day.
Yeah. So, like, worst case scenario, I would be bringing all of the glass and all of the stuff because Cloud9 has an extensive glass collection that we sell. Worst case scenario, I would bring it into CanaGems and sell it from there in the legal shop, because I can't. I guess technically, Jack, like, bongs are still illegal, right? To sell?
You just woke him up.
No, sorry. No, I'm on my last leg.
He was just hitting his bong, actually.
Deals with it. The problem is it's made more complicated by a couple factors, but no one's been charged. It's debatable whether that provision is section, I think, 122 of the criminal code or something, but I don't think that it applies any longer.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So worst case scenario, I would be bringing all of the stuff from Cloud9 into CanaGems and, like, naming it the Cloud at CanaGems or something. But, like, my thing is, I'm tired of being broken down. I'm tired of, whether it's the city or the cops or whoever, tearing everything that I've built down. Like, I always say this to people, every time you get kicked, you have to get up and you have to keep going. But how many times are you supposed to keep going? So,
well, you've been doing an amazing job, and the space that Cloud9 existed in, if we win this injunction, we're going to reinstate it as a space where people can consume safely, and we're going to work with the municipal lawyer to do that. So we're going to fight hard for it. And it's commendable, the fact that it's people like you that put their John Conroy last weekend said it this way, is that it's people that put their bodies on the line so that lawyers like us can fight for them that are important. And so, Britney, people like you put your body on the line because they can take you into custody and hold you there and take away your right to liberty. And so it's an honor to defend you and to fight for the rights of other members of our community. So don't let them wear you down. We're right on this issue. We're not wrong.
Yeah, and listen to the voice of a man who knows run down.
Yeah, trust me. I've spent a fair amount of time with Jack. Fortunately, I consider myself very lucky that we get to see each other on a regular basis, which some people would argue, I'm sure. But literally the hardest working lawyer in cannabis at this point, I think. I say to Jack, that's very nice to say. I say to Jack all the time, man, like, I know that he doesn't have much of a personal life at all. Like, most of the time probably sleeps in his office, and he's just been a nonstop soldier for the cannabis industry since Project Claudia, and if not earlier. So Jack, like, you've been amazing, and I would love to see you on a beach somewhere one day.
Yeah, I can honestly say it's a privilege to call Jack my friend. I really do enjoy having you on the show for the last.
We're getting all mushy now,
yeah.
aren't we? And thank you, Brittany. Thank you for putting yourself on the line. We really appreciate that and respect you for that.
Yes.
Thanks very much, guys.
I just wanted to give Jack a few minutes, and then I'm going to let him go because I know how tired he is. But I know he has a new book that he wanted to talk about, because not just being a lawyer is enough for Jack. Okay. You want to tell people about your new book?
Well, it's called the Cannabis Grow Bible, 3rd edition. So I recently hosted a really interesting panel at the Normal Canada. That's the national organization for the reform of marijuana laws in Canada. We had a conference last weekend.
At the Karma Cup. Yeah.
Did he push mute, maybe?
I think we just lost Jack.
Jack hung up or Jack pushed mute?
Jack went. Well, it's okay.
Sounds like a really good book.
Yeah, he'll call back. He'll call back.
When he realizes that he's talking to nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something? Somebody?
No, I just saw a little notification that it said that he did in fact leave. So.
Yeah, I'm going to call him right back though. Which one is it?
Because again, he may not know he's left yet.
Yeah, he's probably.
I think he knows now. Yeah,
sitting there talking and blah 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 blah. No, he's left now.
Well, Jack has
sorry about that, guys. My phone cut out on me,
okay.
And I gave such an impassioned speech that I think you might have missed.
The phone overheated. There was so much love going around there.
But I just wanted to say that I volunteer with a group called Normal Canada. That's the national organization for the reform of marijuana laws in Canada. And so that's with the lawyers that I most admire in the whole world. So that's Kirk Tusaw and Paul Lewin and John Conroy that we work with, and Alan Young as well. And we had a conference last weekend, and I did a panel talking about what legal cannabis is going to do to cultivation practices in Canada. And I gave a free copy of the new book from Green Candy Press, which is called the Cannabis Grow Bible 3rd edition. So if I'm going to try and get you guys a review copy, and maybe you can talk about it on the show.
For sure.
I think maybe Professor Lee is going to be on the show, and maybe I'll get him a copy.
Yeah, we've got.
But anyway, it's a really neat book, really a big book. It weighs as much as a baby.
Wow! and thanks for this. Thanks for the segue. We actually next week coming up, we have. Not only do we have Professor Lee, who used to do our Grow segment, which Ross is going to do after our next break, and also Guy Rubinski, who is a new friend who I enjoy having on the show just as much as I enjoy having you and Professor Lee on the show, Jack. So
he's cool, man.
Yeah,
he's very cool.
They're both really cool guys, and I know that it's going to be an awesome conversation to have with both of them, because Gooey's writing for all these magazines and Lee's writing for all these magazines and different magazines. right?
We're going to see if we can get a fight going.
Yeah, we're going to start a fight.
Well, it's going to get all sciencey.
Yeah.
That's what I love. I love the sciencey.
That's what I'm here for. Yep, sciencey.
So let's take a couple of minutes here before we go for our last break, and let me ask both Jack and Brittany. Let's say, what do you think's going to happen 5 years from now? Where do you think we're going to be 5 years from now? Ah, hell, 2 years from now.
Okay, Jack, you go first.
Hopefully, lawyers like John Conroy, Paul Lewin, Kirk Tusaw, and myself, working with those guys, are able to use the judicial branch of government to force the legislative and executive branches of government to license the existing cannabis industry and cannabis community, so that these kind of malevolent capitalist forces don't just take everything away and ruin this lovely world that we've created for ourselves. So the fight is going to be essentially to legalize what they're trying to, in this bizarre way, recriminalize. So I think that we're going to have at least 2 years of fighting over that. And hopefully the end result is that the folks that exist in our community are able to continue existing with a license. Whether it's a judge that issues them a license or not, we'll see. But we're not going to let it be easy to simply forget about the cannabis community that has existed and exists.
I don't know if any one of you guys know the stats on this, but are there stats on the ratios of how many people were licensed who aren't going to get licensed again, who are still doing the same thing? You know what I mean? Like, are there stats that are of people who are just fed up and they're just doing it? Anybody know?
No,
not really.
Well, there's not going to be.
Like, the issue is
whether the issue is whether someone can have some form of license that allows them to exist in a commercial sense.
Yeah.
Right, because like if you can have a small shop and it's just your shop and you set the rules and you can purchase cannabis either from a local supplier or that grows, or from a big licensed producer in Alberta that produces tons of big stuff. It should be an inclusive market. And if we've got to go to court to force it to be an inclusive market, then I guess we're going to go to court.
Well, what do you have to say about that, Brittany? I'm glad both of you are continuing the fight. Mark and Jody are continuing the fight on their line of things, as are Chris and Aaron. Everybody's fighting their own fight, I guess, really, right?
Yeah, we're kind of together when it comes to that kind of thing, but we're all striving for the same thing. We're all looking for an inclusive market that includes the people who have fought for legalization for the last 22 years. Mm-hmm. We need to be here, and we're going to win this fight, I think, in the end. There's going to be lots of trials and tribulations, but like I said, the cannabis industry, if there's one thing that we do and one thing we do well, it is adapt. So I can feel like we're going to be here in a few years, and, there may be more bumps in the road. This might not be it. I can't speak, for everybody else, but I definitely think that I've had my run with dispensaries and stuff like that, but there's always somebody behind us and behind the future, to fight the future fights.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of new people out there that are fighting, but they're doing it differently than we started doing it. Unfortunately, because of the unrest in the world as a whole, there's a lot of anger out there, and I'm not much into that. I'd rather sit here and have conversations like with you guys, like we're doing tonight, and kind of figure it out, as opposed to we're better than you, fuck you, no fuck you, no fuck you.
Well, I will say one thing. The dispensary industry and the cannabis industry as a whole has a lot of competition from many different angles. And there's a lot of people in this industry that don't want to see evolution and they don't want to see more dispensaries coming up. When I opened my first dispensary in Hamilton, I was the first one. There was one previous to us, Bright Moments, that had gotten raided and shut down. And I was the next first one. I sat around for 2 years waiting to see what the cannabis industry in Hamilton was looking like. So I went from being the second dispensary, the only one standing. Now there's upwards of 30 dispensaries. And when cannabis culture came to town, it created this huge economic boom for marijuana in the city, sponsoring businesses, not sponsoring, but inspiring businesses all over the city. And I love it. Like, cannabis culture opened, somebody opened 3 doors down, and then somebody opened across the street from the store 3 doors down. And I love competition, and I love the fact that these businesses are proliferating in the city. Obviously, there's a few bad apples in every tree, and who am I to judge on who should be there and who shouldn't? But I definitely think that the industry has to become more inclusive, and everybody has to accept each other. Because without that, we have people backstabbing each other, and it's never going to go anywhere. The city, the cops are going to be like, well, perfect. These guys are going to self-destruct in themselves. We don't even have to do anything.
Yeah.
Yep.
I used to joke that I didn't know which color I had to wear, which color scarf I had to wear. When I go down to the city, am I a green one or a plaid one, or it's like that old turf war. In a lot of ways, it really is. Unfortunately,
completely.
And it's unfortunate. There's one more thing I wanted to ask you specifically. There's a lot of, I'm going to get shot in the head for this. There's a lot of people out there that are saying that women are in control of the cannabis industry in a lot of ways on the street level, I guess you could call it. Do you agree with that? Because I'm seeing a lot of that in Toronto. I mean, in Toronto, the girls are really in control in what's going on in Toronto at the moment, right?
Yeah, I think that within the cannabis industry, there comes some sort of nurturing.
Yeah.
And, women do, not saying that men don't nurture, but that's definitely in a woman's department to excel is nurturing. And specifically in the medical side of things, I feel like women, not that they're more understanding, but maybe more compassionate towards others. And I feel like somehow that might be how the females have not taken over, but definitely.
They're definitely prominent.
Kick the door down, kick the door down on stereotypes. And I'm so impressed with how inclusive the marijuana industry is to females and accepting as well.
Yeah.
And, from my position as a woman in the industry, and as a young woman in the industry as well, people look at me, I'm 29 years old and I've been in this industry for a decade. So when people look at me, if they don't know who I am, they automatically judge me.
Yes.
Like, oh, that's just some dumb girl. She has no idea what she's talking about. She has no idea about anything. And I have seen a lot of that in the industry in Hamilton coming from men.
Yep.
But I can also understand how, this little cute brown-haired girl, it just came through and dominated, how it could be a little bit intimidating.
Yeah, it's a competitive business, and it's nice to see. I mean, I know a lot of the women that are very prominent in Toronto right now, and it's nice to see that. I mean, I've been sitting here watching what's been going on in Toronto, Hamilton, Ontario, pretty much, and it's they're doing better than the guys did. Sorry, but it's true.
Yeah, and I'm so proud that Canada, and even in the United States, I've read many reports of females, killing the marijuana industry, and it makes me so happy that I can be a part of something that is so inclusive and non-judgmental towards the female sex.
Yeah.
Because as we all know, women had a hard go of it in the early 1900s, and this, if you on a street level, if you picture a marijuana drug dealer, let's say, what do you picture? Do you picture a man, tattooed, shady looking, or do you picture a young woman? And I think that that's where we're starting to break down stereotypes of, oh, that's just your local thug dealer or whatever, because here we are, just pure, and we are what we are, no bullshit, all honesty. And that's why I think that people approach women more about it, you know?
Yeah. Well,
You're
are
breaking that mold, right?
We are certainly past that. Hey, come here. I got a lid I want to sell you. Come here. We're certainly past
part of
that.
me almost wishes that I was around in that time.
Oh, I was. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up in Yorkville in Toronto. So
You didn't miss much.
Oh, come on, Marcel.
Yeah,
It
you
was
did. You missed a hell of a lot.
freaking awesome,
You missed a
man.
lot. It was pretty wild back
That's,
then.
I look at people like Mark Emery and people who have been fighting for marijuana legalization for how long, and like what they must have seen in their lifetime.
Yeah.
Like when I was a teenager, I grew up in St. Catharines, Thorold area, and marijuana was everywhere. I had no issues getting a hold of it, but it was all friends from school, right? Like everybody had their local dealer in high school. And then fortunately, I fell across cannabis culture when I was 19 years old, and the rest is history. So I only had I started smoking weed when I was 15. So I only had 4 years of, random dealers, but it was the kid who's in my gym class. It's not, it was never like Joe Schmo behind the building.
Yeah, fortunately and unfortunately, I can honestly say that guy behind the dumpster had some really good weed in the 70s.
Oh, I can imagine. Like that's another reason why I'm kind of sad I missed it, because I feel like I would have had so much fun growing up in that hippie culture. And not that my life has not been a blast. Like I could never top my 20s if I tried. I'm going to try, but I'll get back to you on that. But I just, the amazing music, the culture of it all, like we don't have what you guys had music wise and culturally, like millennials are kind of lost in like, who are we? What's our musical background? We have the Backstreet Boys, we have the Spice Girls, like that's not
One Direction.
Oh yeah, you got that part right.
Like where's the Zeppelins and all these people, like the Eagles and the Doors, and just this incredible music that smoking cannabis to, it's like hand in hand. Like this music was made with cannabis,
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that too, because I spent most of my afternoon watching the the Led Zeppelin reunion and all that. I fell into YouTube about 10 o'clock this morning, and I ended up watching all the Zeppelin, the different Zeppelin reunions over the years that there's been, and it was just like, yeah, man, it just,
right. And like that's you have that for life.
Yeah.
Whereas sure, like the furthest I go back is Method Man and Redman were my token stoners of my generation, which they're both very talented men, don't get me wrong, but there's no comparison to what you guys have.
I'm going to date myself here.
Compare that to Pink Floyd.
I'm going to date myself here. I want to ask all of you, before we go for a break, I want to ask all of you one last question. And that question is, and I'll answer as well, that question is, what was the first concert that you went to go and see? And I'll ask you first, Brittany.
Embarrassingly, Rihanna. Not that I don't think it's embarrassing. I love her.
No, it's embarrassing.
She's my guilty pleasure.
I would if I was given tickets to go see Rihanna, I would go. Okay.
Yeah, for one, she's gorgeous.
She's an amazing performer.
Beautiful, amazing performer. Yeah. Huge stoner. Like and I saw her in Vancouver, so there was just tons of cannabis everywhere. So it was an amazing time.
Yep.
And she sang Bob Marley, which you guys also got, and I'm so jealous of.
There you go. Jack?
I think it was either Collective Soul. No, there were no tickets for it. So Collective Soul played, and I'd never seen music live before.
Yeah.
They played somewhere in Aurelia. No, I think at a Horseshoe Valley ski resort, and I went and hung out and saw it. But the first thing I had tickets for, I think, was the Warped Tour. So a whole bunch of bands, punk rock.
Cool. Ross?
Oh, okay. I got to go that far back, huh?
Yep.
The first major big concert I went to, 1972 at Maple Leaf Gardens. went to see the Chicago Transit Authority when they were called Chicago Transit Authority, and they really did good music. And then after their first album, they went to shit. But it was fun taking acid and going to that concert, when I was 15 years old, and had a lot of fun.
Marcel?
Halifax, Kiss, and then the next night, April Wine played at our high school dance.
All right, and we haven't forgotten that Mary Jane is here. She's just observing and joining in when she feels like it, but I'm going to ask her as well. What was your first concert?
Oh, I was hoping you'd forget about me on this one, because I think I've got Britney beat on this, and it actually was New Kids on the Block.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I have you all beat.
Right?
I have you all beat. My first concert, we were given a choice of the Rolling Stones at the exhibition or Sonny and Cher. We went and saw Sonny and Cher.
How you knew you were going to do that.
Oh boy, that's not a concert. That's a variety show.
Yeah,
This is no, but
More
that's
like a
back.
musical.
That's back when after the concert you could rush the stage and they stand there and they talk to you and shake your hand and giggle and snort with you for 10, 15 minutes. Not
Right, 'cause
like
it's
now.
not a concert.
Well, whatever.
Variety show.
The concert I went to in 1972 was Chicago. It was delayed by about an hour and a half because when they were crossing the border with all their equipment, the customs were looking for drugs in all of their equipment, so it delayed them.
Nice.
And that still happens.
I know. Something
So-
about, rock stars, musicians, they think for some reason they're taking drugs. I don't know.
Unless you're Ted Nugent and you're trying to get across the border in Detroit and you've got the gun rack full of guns on in your truck. I want to let Jack go because I know that he's got a busy day ahead and he's probably really bushed. But I want you to tell people where they can get a hold of you if they have some legal issues, and where they can get a hold of you if they want to read some really good cannabis books.
Well, the best way to get a hold of me if you have a legal problem is email us at TousawLaw, TOUSAWLAW.ca. And if you want to read a really interesting book about cannabis, then I would encourage you to check out Green Candy Press. And you could just type that into Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, and you'll find us. And if you're interested in cannabis, I'm sure we have a book that you'll enjoy.
They have a lot. We've reviewed a lot of books, and like we were talking about earlier, one of the books that I've got here is Marijuana 101, which is Professor Lee's book, and he will be here with us next week, along with Dewey Rubinski. Now, I'm gonna say, Jack, thank you very much, and we're gonna let you go. Brittany, do you want to hang out for our last segment? We're just gonna take a quick break, or do you want to go?
Is that the 15 minutes or?
What? Say that again.
Sorry, is the segment until?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll hang out. No worries.
Yeah.
Okay, rock and roll, everybody. Talk soon, and please email me about the stuff that we talked about. Okay.
And I'm going to message you here very shortly, Jack.
Perfect.
Oh, let him.
Okay, Jack.
Appreciate it.
Good night.
Have a good night,
Good
guys.
fight.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. As always, I had a really fun time.
You're
Thank
always
you.
welcome, and go and get some damn sleep, would you, boy?
Jack.
Okay, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
Jack.
Yeah.
Our pleasure.
And we will be right back with another segment, and we're going to have a little growy thing there with Mr. Ross Middleton there from BMA Hydroponics, which you're going to hear his wife's commercial right here in a minute, because I have to listen to his voice, and I don't want to hear his voice also on a commercial. That was an insult, Ross.
I know it was, and I'm taking it as such.
We'll be right back.
Hi, it's Deb from BMA Hydroponics. Whatever you are growing, from vegetables to medicinal cannabis, we have everything you need to succeed. From seed to harvest to processing and extracting, we carry all the brand name products that will help you produce, process, and consume high-quality medicine. Our knowledgeable staff of qualified growers have decades of experience with home production, and all possess either MMAR injunction status or an ACMPR registration certificate. We offer the largest variety of products available anywhere, and if you don't see what you're looking for, just let us know and we'll find it for you. Visit our store at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville, Ontario, or visit our website at bmahydroponics.com. We can be reached at 613-967-9888, Monday to Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/BMAHydro and drop us a line at BMA. Our motto is your success is our success.
Hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
I think it's time for a change, to rethink things our way. Gotta know by now that this ain't working. Gotta rip it on down and start again. You know it doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't make sense. You know I blame it on industry. I blame it on my own hypocrisy. Miseducation and politicians. No one's willing to step up and speak. I see my friends every day, trying to live their lives their own way. While you worry about the rent, while they're living in pain, but you won't grant them the right to take it away. You know it doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't make sense.
played it. That's the Killin' Time Band, and that is actually a very, very popular song in the community because it's actually pertinent to a lot of what's going on, right?
Sure is.
I wanted to give Ross some time to do his grow thing, but we're going to say goodnight to Britney, and I wanted to let her sites be told and, where people can find her and stuff like that. So why don't you do that, and then you can bow out quietly.
Cool, guys. So everybody, if you're interested in following me or my businesses, you can follow me, Britney Ann Guerra, on Facebook, or Britney Guerra 87 on Twitter. Canagems is at Canagems, CANNAGEMS, on all sources of social media. So Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That's CANNAGEMS. And Cloud9 Hamilton, again, on all Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, Cloud9 Hamilton. And thank you so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. We'll have to have you come back again. You'll have
thanks for being here.
When you're all done
Anytime.
and said. So we're gonna let Britney bow out, and then we're gonna let Ross do his little grow thingy that he's prepared.
I'm excited because I might have grow questions.
Good, because it's information that might interest you.
Okay, go for it.
Okay.
I'm not hearing anything yet.
I know you're not.
We're waiting for you.
Al's supposed to set it up with a piece of music.
Yeah, but I'm loading it, and here we go. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
I'm growing marijuana in my yard. Growing marijuana in my yard. I got little pots of pipe spread out all over the lot, 'cause I'm growing marijuana in my yard. Well, I got the seed from Mexico. Stuck it in some dirt and let it grow. Put it in my garden with my peppers and my peas, and I get all the smoke I need for free. 'Cause I'm growing marijuana.
Okay, I got to put that in my flash drive.
There you go. We'll play the rest
That's a cute
after.
song.
We'll play
but
the
you know
rest
what? There's a
after.
whole bunch of people growing marijuana in their backyard right now, and I just happen to be one of them. And for everybody out there who's growing cannabis outdoors right now, and there's a whole bunch of them. There's some things you need to be aware of. It's the middle of September. You know what that means. We're getting near harvest. So we're going to focus on that aspect of cannabis growing. The days are getting shorter. The plants are starting to flower. And it's time to get ready. And there's some certain things you need to be aware of right now, because it is such a critical time. We've had such funny weather over the last for the whole summer. It's been unusually cool and damp through most of the country, except for the West Coast, where it's been pretty darn hot. So it might, some of these things might not affect them as much. But you need to be looking at your plants right now, because powdery mildew is rampant out there. You see anything that looks like a white thumbnail or like a fingerprint or something like that on your leaves, you need to be aware that that's probably the beginnings of powdery mildew. And the sooner you take action on it, the better. You don't want to be spraying anything onto your buds, obviously. Most of the remedies for powdery mildew contain things like sulfur, and those have the residues that are just going to destroy your buds. So what I recommend and what I do is I mix 5 milliliters per liter of 29% hydrogen peroxide with pH water with a little bit of potassium silicate to raise up that pH to about 8 or 9. And then when you spray that on the leaf, there are free radicals released by the hydrogen peroxide that actually kill the cellular structure of the powdery mildew. And the high pH also discourages it from returning. Another issue that you might deal with is something called botrytis, and most people use the slang expression bud rot. Everybody's seen that. You notice a leaf curls and turns brown. The next thing you know, there's a brown spot right in the middle of your bud. That botrytis is not as onerous as powdery mildew, which can completely destroy a crop, but it is something that you have to deal with quickly because it does move fast. So you want to take some sort of a baggie or a grocery bag, put it down over top of that bud, and just go ahead and snip it right off. don't reach in there with your fingers or with a pair of scissors and just try to surgically remove that brown spot, because when you do that, you're just releasing spores into the air, and that's going to reinfect other buds. So you slip that bag over the top and just cut that bud right off. And I know it's hard to sacrifice one of your girls to save the others, but it's a good thing to do. So one other thing too at this time of year, and I'll just mention it real quick because we did have a story about somebody getting beat up in their driveway and hit with a pipe. There's people out there who want your cannabis. Okay, watch out for them. Take precautions. If you're in close proximity to your home, use a motion detector light. Get a trail camera. Put some signage up that says that you're legal if you're legal, and that you will call the police. So basically, those are some of the real bad things you got to look out for. Another thing you got to do this time of year is you got to start clearing. You got to you've been feeding your plants all summer long. You've been giving them all these fine nutrients, and they've done really great things for you. They're growing awesome. They're nice fat buds, but now you don't want that fertilizer in your plant anymore. So now you got to start flushing. I use a clearing solution myself. Some people just use straight water. I use 5 days with clearing solution. Any clearing solution of your choice. They pretty much all do the same thing. They're like X-Lax for a plant. They just make them poop out all those nutrients, and then follow that up with about 5 days of just straight pH balanced water, and you'll end up with a product that releases all of the terpenes, all of the best smells. It's going to taste nice. It's not going to be a black ash joint that's going to bite the back of your throat. You're going to get that really tasty, nice, pleasant tasting stuff. So that's what you want. Clean plant equals good bud. So and also you have to be thinking ahead right now and preparing for curing and trimming. So whether you're going to do that with a machine, there's all kinds of good machines on the market, right up from the Trim Pro to the Centurion Pro to the what's the other one? Okay, I'm not going to name drop that one, but there's another one that's even better. The Twister. Sorry, the Centurion Pro is the good one. The Twister's the other one, but Centurion Pro, if you've got 10 grand, it's worth it. So anyway, that's pretty much it for right now. Get ready, be ready. Good luck. Harvest those buds, dry them nice. Take your time in curing and practice your own. Everybody's got their own way of curing. Some people hang it dry and let it dry and then trim it dry. Others trim it wet and then put it on a rack. Pretty much anything will do as long as you've done a good job on clearing. You should have a good product. So next segment, we're going to discuss harvesting and processing.
Harvesting
so
already.
Down to the nitty-gritty of exactly what you do with your cannabis once you pick it.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, and also you need to do something about storage and stuff, because you know what? I'm getting sick of fucking people with their moldy weed. People need to learn how to store their weed better.
They do, and that is very important. The curing process is something that we will talk about next time, and that's part of the harvesting and the processing part of what you're going to do with your plants. So yes, you're right. If you bag it too soon or put it in a jar too soon, if you don't burp it, if for lack of a better term, where you open it for 24 hours or 12 hours and then close it for 12 and then open it for 12 and close it for 12, those kinds of things are really important, because if you just stick it in there when it's still wet, it will mold.
Yeah, I've done that open and close. I would leave the jar open, cracked open all day long, all night long, and close it during the day. And I would keep it in a dark cupboard.
Yeah.
Right.
I do is I turn around and I take it from the jar and put it back on the drying rack.
You can do that. Yep.
Dry it again, just not as much, but dry it again until it gets back to the dry state, then back to the jar, and go back and forth burping it that way until that moisture content's gone.
So
that's the good thing about growing. People who have grown up with growing, if you want to put it that way, have gone through this evolutionary process of experimenting with what works best for them. Yeah. And everybody's got their own way of doing things. And in the end, it's about getting a good product. And if you can, maybe take first place in some Mum Cup or something like that, you're doing a good job, right?
I was waiting for that. Yeah. Ross won first place for a sativa, right?
That's right.
And now I got to say,
John Cook Memorial Tournament. Yep.
I have tried it. I have seen the beautiful lady, and it's nice.
And it's blowing in through our window every night.
I said to Ross when I was over at his place, I got out of the car and I went, "Wow, man, your house stinks."
So you guys have a lot of humidity right now?
We're going through a real warm, dry spell right now for the next foreseeable future. Like for the next 7 to 10 days, it's going to be hot and dry, which is perfect.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I've already been harvesting, so
a lot of people here have too. I've had some people have been harvesting since the middle of August, not autoflowers either.
No, I mean I had they weren't autoflowers, and I had them all harvested before the first week of September was out.
Yep.
And now I've started harvesting another one that's not an autoflower, but because I grow outdoors and I trim wet, it's easy for me just to take off the finished buds and leave the rest on there to finish growing.
Right, and that's part of the harvesting is also you do that, right? You never take cut the plant off at the base and just drag the plant in the house. You got to do it in a graduated way. I mean, when I was down living in Prince Edward County, I was out on a peninsula in the middle of Lake Ontario. I used to do my last harvest on November 1st. So, that's how long you can leave it.
Well, I mean, last year we were still harvesting in the middle of November.
Yep.
Here.
Yeah, because you guys, but you guys get that in the fall out on the East Coast. You've got you're so influenced by the ocean that you can get that late start, but that also works against you in the spring too, right?
Right. Our normal time for harvesting is usually mid-September to mid-October. Last year we were able to go right through into November. We kind of had no choice with some of the strains, and now this year we've got a lot of people that are doing early harvesting. This global warming thing is really screwing up our growing cycles.
Hey,
it sure is.
It
sure is. And what about the hurricane, Jose? Is that heading up towards you guys, or what's going on with that?
Yeah, I've been tracking Jose for the last week to see what it's doing. 'Cause it's acting like a really weird hurricane. But
it's just kind of hovering out there, isn't it?
Well, that's what it is, isn't it? Isn't it a hurricane?
Yeah, but what it's done is it's done a complete circle in the Atlantic. It came back around on itself and picked up strength. But if I look at the ISO lines now, it's still
the other two? Did it join the other two as well? What about
it's going to miss Bermuda completely. Monday, it's
this
going
is
to be
Irma, right?
Close.
This is Irma you're talking about, right? Irma.
No, this is Jose. Irma's gone.
Irma's already gone through. So there's Jose, and then there's another one coming as well.
Jose, and then the other one isn't named yet, and it's forming down. There's actually two more forming down.
There are.
Oh shit!
They just came off Africa. Yeah.
Wow.
Our Atlantic storms come from Africa.
Yeah.
They come off the Sahara Desert.
Yep. They start as dust storms.
Jose formed right behind Irma, but instead of it picking up because of a high pressure system in Canada, it stayed out in the ocean. And
we have a high pressure system up here in Canada.
Yeah. So now it's going to impact land on Wednesday, and it's going to be going into not the eye, though. It's going to hit Massachusetts. They're going to get hit with a lot of the wind, and then it's going to push back out into the ocean. So it has no idea where it's going to go yet.
So you're not sure if it's actually going to hit the Maritimes or not?
No.
You know
last week it was a direct path to hit right to my house for the eye.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
But that was Irma.
For
That was Irma that was coming.
To keep an eye on, because if you wait too long and you end up into a cold, wet period, it can be disastrous. It happened to me one year. I just waited for that extra few days, and I regretted it so bad because the weather just flipped, and I got powdery mildew so bad at the wrong time.
Now, does Frost?
For me, it's more of a concern of the amount of wind from a hurricane, because I just keep thinking of the decimation of crops that have just gone through Florida and all of the islands.
Yeah.
All right. So if you've got patients there relying on their medicine, they've lost their medicine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I'm sorry, cannabis is an awesome plant, but it can't withstand 150 mile an hour wind.
No, or hail, or
neither can your fence. So listen, guys, I want to make sure that we're already over, but that's okay because I want to say hello to Mary Jane.
Yes.
Hey.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm still awake. I'm still here.
What do you think about today's show? The idea was to have Mary Jane join us to see if she fit in, and that she didn't really say anything, but I know she fits in because I've been spending some time with her the last couple of weeks, and just last weekend, and then I saw you this last week, right, at the store. So
yeah, we've spent a couple times together now.
So I don't know. What do you think? You think she'll fit in, guys?
I'm thinking so, yeah.
Can she handle the insanity?
I don't know. Do you think you can handle the insanity of 3 penises being thrown up at you all the time?
Oh,
I don't. That's funny. Al did warn me, so it's all right, guys.
I did warn her.
And Ross has met me, so he knows I'm pretty out there myself. My question is, can you 3 handle me?
Yeah, okay. we were behaving tonight because you were here, so
yeah.
Oh, I guess time will tell, right?
You might want to go back and listen to some of those other shows.
Also, because of who our guests were, we were trying to be respectful and proper.
Because we actually are kind of nice when Jack's on.
I enjoy having Jack on the show, and I really like the fact that he enjoys coming on because it gives us a perspective that we need to hear, because Jack is really a cannabis warrior. He really is.
He is.
Oh,
he really
yeah.
is.
True, right down to the ground with that man.
And he's joined us from some weird places.
Yes.
Even if he's sitting in court, he'll answer me. Which is really cool, and I just love what he's doing, and I think that he's going to be a force to be reckoned with come down the road, because he's opened some big old team. He's opened some big old can of whip ass on the Canadian government. So next week, as I mentioned, we've got Gooey Rubinski and Professor Lee, 2 consummate growers in their own right, but they're really good writers as well. And we're going to be talking with them throughout the couple hours that we hang out. And I hope that Mary Jane will be joining us on that show as well. What do you think? Huh?
I look forward to it.
Okay, there you go. So,
all right, she's committed now.
Oh, no, I'm keeping her.
Okay, done deal.
That amounts to a contract.
Yourselves, guys. No fighting.
I said to Ross when I was leaving the other day, I said, and Mary Jane, I'm keeping her. So
that's nice.
We got some really good shows planned down the road as well. And we're going to say good nighty booze.
Peace out.
Yep, and a great show.
Peace, love, and hippie shit.
As our buddy Chris says. Is he feeling better?
I don't know. I haven't had a chance to talk to him.
Yeah. He said he was
I've been
feeling,
so busy.
He said he was feeling better, but he was still getting, trying to figure it out last time I talked to him. But
he did tell Marcel and I today that we need to find Jesus.
Yes.
Oh, yes. I saw that. Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, and he called us a very nasty name.
The binary brothers there were having fun with ones and zeros.
Yeah. You could speak in binary. Doesn't anybody know that?
If you can't understand binary, that is not our fault.
You know what?
That's right.
I know for a fact that Ross was using a fucking binary translator because he posted
No,
the link.
I was not. I was doing that in my head.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, everybody does it in their head.
Yeah,
sure. Come on, it's binary.
110011001010101001, and on that note, good night.
Peace out.
You like music, you like weed, well, we gonna be good friends indeed. This is how much I like more than smoking trees. They'll make you dance the do-si-do and teach you how the chiba grows. Smoke a bowl on the 420 radio show. On Lifestyle Radio.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
I'm trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.